Hello viewers, and welcome to another video on the 250 GTO wheel from Thrustmaster. Again, it's a great rim, but as with all these Ferrari rims, no, I'm not going to just drive Ferraris all the time. I'm going to drive other cars as well. One of my favourite cars was from the 60s was the AC Cobra. This here is a slightly later version, but it's still with the larger wheel arches that was brought in. Don't ask me which model. I did study the models, but either way, very nice. I think this one was late 60s. And you know, so much power, so delicate to drive at the same time though, because it was raw, unrefined power, and so the only traction control is your foot. Basically your right foot is the traction control system. And again, I was mentioning in the previous video the purity of driving. Now I've done this particular video on Monza, I suppose because it's a track that it's got different technicalities, but it lets you get up to speed. So many courses where you're not really up to speed, and these old Formula 1 courses were so challenging, but the cars went so fast. Incredible feeling, and it really is something special here. Now you've got multiple camera viewpoints. I thought, what the hell, why don't I just show all the cameras? So you've got multiple camera viewpoints here. See my onboard there as well with the GoPro. And of course you'll see over the shoulder there as well, just to see a bit of gear stick action as I use my triple screens. And down that long back straight into Parabolica. Braking point is so important here. If you miss your braking point, you will just end up in the gravel. And before recording this video, I did a few practice laps. I did probably about 10 practice laps. Just the amount of times I went into that gravel just trying to find the correct braking point. It was really tricky, because it's not just hitting the brakes, it's hitting the brakes and getting down through the gears correctly. It's really important that you correctly prepare the car for the corner. These cars don't have a lot of leeway in terms of entry into those corners. Here you get a lot of feedback from the wheel, really knocking me about on these sections. I was finding it very tricky to, well, I would say tricky, but certainly the wheel was bumping about a lot. And this is where I felt the metal in the middle of the wheel, just how sort of sharp it was in terms of resistance. You know, when you imagine the real racing drivers holding onto these wheels, goodness me, I'm surprised a few didn't lose their fingers. So again, up to speed, high speed section, and I just like the way that you were able to stretch the legs of this car here. You know, there's so few tracks where you stretch the legs of the car. My camera seems to struggle with the focus there, hence we have the other viewpoints as well. And yeah, just a really nice feeling. Now we're coming up to turn 1, which is a high speed corner, but it's not without some braking and some guidance from the throttle. So it's a tricky corner. It's a predictive corner. I don't have a brake marker yet for this corner, but I have a rough judgment of speed, and so I'm just using speed perception into the corner. When the car starts to go wide, I get on the power, because then I'm in control. I'm driving the car forward. I'm not letting the weight of the car throw me off. You know, sometimes when you're going wide almost on a corner and the car's sort of losing a bit of balance, you almost want to give it a bit more power, just to get some drive, so you're in control through the corner, even if it's a very small amount of power through the wheels. Again, corners like this, the car moves around a lot. You get on the power too quickly, and the rear end really steps out. I mean, the weight distribution of the car just throws you off completely. So it's quite delicate driving this car, and I can imagine that I'm just cruising, really having fun. I would say there's a very small line between cruising and on the limit. It's a very small line. You know, here you might be able to take that flat virtually if you were on the limit and you were pushing. You know, and into this corner here, there's probably various different ways you can take it in terms of maximising your speed. A little bit of drift maybe. I'm mainly just using it to get down my gears. Turning in. As soon as you gently apply a bit of throttle though, rear end starts to step out, and you'll see there, guiding it, floating through the corner. The car is literally tippy-toeing through that corner. Then when you change that gear, then you can put your foot down. It's getting up to that gear. Oh, you can see there the car didn't go into gear, so I had to re-engage my gear again. And I might have been lifting off the clutch just a bit too soon as I was engaging gear. that's just another little nuance to the car. You know, you've got to get your gear changes right. You know, just work on a bit on clutch control and develop your driving. You know, but it's a really nice circuit. I mean, now I haven't been doing racing because with these particular videos, because I felt the purity of using this wheel was for me more in the driving experience and the racing experience in terms of my enjoyment. Now, there's been some discussion. Let's talk a bit about comments. I know some of you would have liked the rim to have been 1:1 scale. The rim is not 8:10 scale. It's still the largest rim, joint largest rim Thrustmaster have ever made, in line with the Sparco rim recently. So it's one of the biggest rims on the market. It's as big as any other wheel rim on the market. So in that sense, if there's a rim that's bigger, do let me know from a games company. I've never seen it. So in that sense, it's a large rim. It's a large rim. You know, it's a big rim, as big as the recent full-size Sparco. I think there is that issue that yes, they could have sold the rim for, you know, full size at $2,000 or something. You know, I suppose there is that. You know, because you've got, you know, more used in terms of wood and metal, but you've got more space in the warehouse, more manufacturing, more logistics. You know, there's all these different costs, and I think in that sense, let's see how well it does as it is. This is a very basic driving rim. It's also for the collector. I'm not saying you're going to use this all the time. I mean, for me, my stock rim is Sparco rims now. You know, they're my stock rims in terms of what I'll be using on all the games all the time. This is something more for the occasional driving experience, but it really does add a lot to that experience. So this is very much catering for, you know, your hardcore sim users, you know, in terms of the pure driving experience. If you're not using a gear stick, well, you haven't really got many options, have you? I guess you're using automatic gears, which just isn't the same. I could have done that, I wasn't going to do that. No, got to get the gear stick out, and it just adds so much to the driving experience. Whoa, you could see there as well, you know, you're turning in the corner and just got a bit of, you know, those wheels, they just spin up for a moment. It's carrying a bit more speed in the corner, and that's what I was talking about, preparing the car for the corner. As soon as you try to brake a bit later, you get a bit confident, think, oh, I'll brake a bit later, I'll give it a bit more power, and that happens. You know, it's such a fine line. When you're talking a couple of meters in terms of, you know, the distance of braking, where I was braking quite hard, because obviously the brakes are not as responsive on these cars as they would be on a modern car. So you've got to gauge that distance in terms of braking, but not locking your wheels. It's always delicate. These men, you know, I tell you, when I look at the racing drivers and we talk about the different, you know, actual Formula 1 racing of the 60s and just how dangerous it was, those guys really were heroes. You know, they were putting their lives on the line every time, and that's what it was expected as well. You know, people wouldn't expect anything less. It's just the way of the world. In a way, it's kind of gone a long way the other way now, with the Halo coming in this year. You know, I'm personally not keen on it. It's unproven, but that's another thing for Formula 1 conversation. So yes, I really thoroughly enjoyed racing this round, and yeah, I mean, I suppose there's going to be those people that aren't happy it's not 1:1 scale ratio, but you know, to each their own. To those of you who buy it, it's comes in wonderful packaging, as you'll have seen in the unboxing. It's a stunning replica, and it's something that belongs in a glass cabinet somewhere in your collection. You know, it's that one you get out at Christmas for that spin or something, even just to have. And I mean, I don't know how many of these Thrustmaster are going to make. It's not a mass market wheel, is it? So it's not like the whole world's going to have it, but it's on the 70th anniversary of Ferrari. Very nice indeed. But that's it for now. If you have questions, do pop them in the comments and I'll respond to those. And hopefully very soon we'll have a podcast as well and be able to get back into that. But that's it from me for now. As ever, more soon.